In today's day and age, with all this AI going on,
Yeah.
Everything's probably more accessible than it ever was before.
Yeah.
Why then do people still make excuses?
Because it's much easier to not take accountability on things that that you didn't discipline yourself to do, I guess. I mean, that comes across really insensitive. But look, I do think there's an element of luck and grace in life for sure.
Yeah, okay, I agree
But
with
there
that.
is also a massive element of control.
Yeah.
Or influence or agency, however you look at it. And I think it's much easier to make an excuse. It lets yourself easy to say that I had no control over this than to say that, well, if it was on me, then it would be my fault that I didn't get what I want.
So focusing on externals. Let's go about that. Because I suppose when someone makes an excuse, a common excuse is luck. Like I just am very unlucky or something like
Correct,
that.
yeah.
What's your view on luck? How would you define luck? Because it's not exactly a real thing. It's something that we make up.
Yeah. Well, if you asked me this question when I was 25, I would have been like, man, luck doesn't exist. I don't believe in luck. But if you ask me that now, I do believe there's an element of it. But let me just explain the arguments for it, on my perspective for it, and then also let me excuse on why you shouldn't not believe in luck, but you definitely shouldn't use luck as an excuse. Okay, so this is an example given by Tony Robbins. When I was younger, listening to Tony Robbins, that I didn't believe in luck. But let's just say you're walking down the street on a nice sunny day like this, like today, and you feel like this nice little breeze hit your face, and you feel good about it. You enjoy that very moment. What did you do in that very moment that made you enjoy it? So that's an element of grace or luck, as you can call it, whether how big or small it's there. But it's also there for everyone. You know? It's there for you, for me, for all the audience. We're having a different element of grace and luck in our lives. Everyone gets a different dose of it. You might have really long legs. You might have really short arms. Like it just all balances out. And the world is unfair, which is what makes it fair for everyone. It's just everyone has it. Okay? But the problem is, what does that even do for you? I mean, it may well be true that somebody's more lucky than you, but that's not the reason why you can't be there. The reason why you can't be there is because you didn't take certain action. Didn't take accountability of things. So I do believe there's an element of luck, but I also think it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I see the action part is the most important thing, of course. And usually luck, when it comes down to it, it's the harder you work and the more actions you take, the luckier you tend to get.
Yeah.
It's like, the more shots you make, the more likely that one's going to go in as well. Yep. So you have to create your own luck to some degree, and obviously doing more things is going to equate to more luck. Luck is one of these things that it's just something you should never really ever focus on.
Yeah, you should never talk about it. Because it's almost like it's raining today. I mean, it's just, it rains.
Like you said, it goes every way. It goes every which way. You could blame the weather or whatever, let's say, like because you didn't want to go for a run, but it's raining for everyone.
Correct.
And someone's out there running. Someone's out there in the gym. You know, if you didn't want to go to the gym because it's cold, someone is in the gym. Yeah. Creating his own luck.
I remember I used to think, I used to run the 1,000 steps, and when it was the rain, it would just be like quiet. Nobody would be there, and I used to be so happy about this. Like, this is a lap that no one's gonna get. I'm the only one getting the gains out of this. Yeah. So you can look at it every which way. Somebody like me will go and I think that every winner or fulfilled person is going to say, yeah, what an opportunity to win when no one else is going to get this. But the other way to look at it is, it's raining, I'm not going to do it. I just think it's something that you shouldn't talk about. It's no point. It's literally 0 point. It gives you no power to talk about luck because if you actually believe, let's just say that you actually believe that it is luck that stopped you from getting what you want or getting to where you want to be, it means that you can't do anything to change it. Imagine that outcome. So there's a saying that the people that don't believe what they did, they're a result of their own choices. You know, what you did got you to where you are. If you don't actually believe that, you actually don't have the power to change that. So, but believing in luck, just you're literally giving up your life.
You're stripping yourself of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Which
good
is
in
what the excuses all come down to. It's focusing on externalities as opposed to internalities.
It's a short-term comfort, right? It's not your fault.
But
That's
it's
what
also
it
a
is.
complete trap. Like you're literally removing any ability to have control of your life.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's something people want. I've
Absolutely,
never
no.
wanted that. Like I feel like the only times that I've been really like angry, or not angry, but like fueled up is when I have like no control. Like for example, you know when you get like a parking fine, and you just have no control over it. You're like, well, this just sucks. Like I can't do anything. I can't go on whatever. The only thing I can do is pay it off, even though I think it's unjust. It has to just be paid off. So when someone goes excuse, they're literally saying I don't want control.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't understand. I can't really conceptualize how people think like that.
There's a lot of that going around this day and age. All you can do, right? It's like one of those age-old topics. Anybody that's accomplished anything is going to have the same belief here. I mean, you can put Kobe Bryant, you can put any small business owner, you can put anybody that's ever strived for anything. Anybody that's won any real trophy that can sit there and just be like, man, it's one of those things. You can get any excuse person that'll sit here and just say, oh, it's because of this, I couldn't do that. It's this age-old thing. You just don't talk about it. It doesn't do you any good. That's saying excuses or results. Which one do you want? It's really just that simple.
True, yeah. Well, do you think there are any valid excuses that can be made?
Literally zero. I wouldn't call them excuses. I mean, sure, for someone in Africa missing 2 limbs, that's being malnutritioned.
Yeah.
To get to the same success level as, say, myself versus somebody with a Ivy League education, it's going to be different. The success chance of that is going to be different.
Yeah.
But that's still not something to talk about. And if anything, it has happened before. There's been people that's started a lot lower than you in a socioeconomic status that ended up a lot higher. That exists too. But nobody talks about that. Right? Because that makes you actually feel like, oh, you can do it. He's got 2 hands, you've got 2 hands. If you don't make excuses, it means I'm actually accountable.
Yeah, well, there's evidence everywhere, and I think people just turn a blind eye to it of people that are far more misfortunate, have way less opportunities, way less ability and availabilities to do something, but still do it and still accomplish it.
There's a pursuit
people
of
don't look
comfort.
to these things. People always like either turn it. I don't know if they just shut their brain off to these evidence that these things happen, and they only look at the people like that did have the silver spoon in the mouth, that were fed, grown up to be successful or whatever. They just turn a blind eye to the people that actually had the trials and tribulations, had the setbacks, had, as you put it, no limbs in Africa, back against the wall, but still were able to do something. They just must like completely block out that evidence that that's possible. But I do think I wouldn't say they're valid excuses, but I'd say there's valid reasons. Like there's a rhyme and reason to everything.
Stuff can be true.
Yeah.
But that's not the reason of why you can't be where you want to be though.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Yes, it's true that you may be missing this. But there is still that you can become that.
Maybe it's just there's reasons why it will be harder.
Yes.
But that's not an excuse. That's not a reason to use it as an excuse.
Yeah. Because essentially no one is going to know what they can and can't accomplish. Technically, no one knows for sure, right? I mean, you can drive from here to there. You don't even know for sure if you're going to get there on time. You might get in a car accident. So technically no one knows stuff for sure. So really the fact that, I don't think I can get there, well, that's not a valid thing because no one really knows whether they're going to get there or not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. It's the uncertainty.
Yeah, I just think that is a pursuit of comfort. It's much comforting to know that, hey, I tried my best and it's not my fault. I think there is a time and place for that. When you're going through stuff, you might not be in a position to, you're still, sulking. I mean, I say that in a good way. Like I think when you get a cut, there's got to be the stage where you go, ow, that hurts. You don't just immediately go, okay, like a robot, just
to go.
Put a Band-Aid on it and done.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, how do I do this?
Yeah, yeah.
So people go through that sulking stage, but there's a time where that happens, and there's a time to move on from that. People look at this, you get a little cut on your arm, and you start crying about it for 2 hours. You're crying about it, but somebody else who had the same cut will go in there and just patch it up, and by 2 hours they feel better. I think that's a very dumbed down example of there's always a bit of agency in that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I get it. It might just come back to like a limiting belief system as well. Excuses.
Your surroundings as well. Yeah.
Yeah, your surroundings, how you view the world, how you view yourself. It gives you the agency to make certain excuses. Like some people just wouldn't put up with excuses.
Yeah.
Like, you obviously don't want to cause like fights amongst your friends and whatnot. But there's been times where like they're saying like, I don't have this and that. I'm just like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, yes, you do.
I think a lot of that is learned helplessness though.
Yeah.
Like learned helplessness. If you're from a family where, you know, my example of the gym thing, I'm going to use that example. I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but the gym thing where I was training the gym and had my headphones on so I could overhear one of the other new. There's a skinny girl that signed up to the gym. She's clearly new, and she was here with either a boyfriend or two brothers or something. And the two boys are obviously experienced in the gym and is trying to encourage her to train. She's super skinny, super weak, and she's on this chest press and she's struggling with the lightest weight, and she's doing them, but she's struggling, and she's looking around super embarrassed and squealing and stuff. And the more you do this, the more attention you're gonna get. Everyone's looking at you, and the more embarrassed she gets. And then she made a comment to the brothers, said, "I'm never coming back here now, never coming back." And I was like, I don't like hearing stuff like even on by accident I'm hearing. I go, let's just see how this plays out. You know, brothers are saying, why just ask? Some people have asked the people at the front for help, ask for a spot. This is normal. And she reluctantly was sort of training along with them, and then I left the gym. So then I sort of didn't see this group of people for a while. And then in about 2 weeks later, I'm glad to see this girl come back to the gym, but this time she's got a friend with her. Okay, so they're both noobs. And now they're doing the same weight on the same chest press, but they're no longer squealing. Or they're squealing, but they're no longer embarrassed because they realize everyone else is also trying very hard. Okay, so learn helplessness, what I mean by example in relating to this, is before she got into the environment where everyone sort of normalizes struggle, that they think it's bad that you're almost failing at pushing this weight. But after they come for a little bit in an environment where everybody sort of struggles, so this struggling is it's not that I'm weak, it's just normal to struggle. So if you grow up in an environment where your environment is constantly cuddles you to say, if you're trying so hard at something and you fail twice, they tell you to just stop. It's not cut out for you. Let's go and take a break. This is going to make you feel like that's hard. But if you're from an environment where you have to do that 10 times, that's your hard. So that becomes your 20 degrees or 30 degrees or 40 degrees, however you're happy to live in, you're used to. And if you're used to being 30 degrees, someone pulls you down 20, you feel cold and vice versa. So it's just that product of environment. Hence, learn helplessness, I think. It's a massive thing around our society today, where the kids aren't really struggling, but you go and you pat them on the back where I think it's just completely over the top. It's normal to fail. It's normal to just go through struggles. But now it's that bigger deal for them. It's like a kid that ran over there and busted their knee. You just tell them to, hey, it's okay. You're just learning how to walk. Just get up. But you run over there and you cuddle them and you pat them on the back. Now they start crying. Yeah, right. So kind of, I feel like it's a little bit of that. It's okay. Stop calling a normal life a struggling life. Everyone's got their own sort of struggles.
It's fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, some common limiting beliefs that kind of run into that. I'm not good enough. This is self-doubt or imposter syndrome. I think it stops people from really maybe even trying. So I think maybe this girl felt like she wasn't even good enough. But the idea is that it's not that you're not good enough. It's that you're here to improve. Yeah. You're meant to be pushing these limits. If you can't do this, that's good.
It's normal, right?
That's something that's meant to happen.
It's a good sign.
Yeah. Why do you think people kind of struggle with the self-identity and self-belief that encourages them to actually try and do their best?
Sorry, what was the question? Can you rephrase that? So what was the belief?
I'm not good enough.
Okay, so because I'm not good enough, I'm not going to try.
Why do you think people get stuck in that zone of thinking I'm not good enough?
Well, I guess in that particular example, she compared herself with a lot of other people that seemed to be better than her at this. And she felt shame that I think that fear that I'm not good enough, that thought I think exists in most people, don't it? I don't think that's...
Well, okay, well, let's put it this way. Like, let's say for yourself as an example, if you were back as a young adult and you were starting the gym, but you had a thought, you know what, I'm actually not good enough to do this, then that might have
I think it's what you're trying to say is letting not good enough stop you.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's an excuse.
Yeah.
So for example,
well, then my answer to that is everyone feels like they're not good enough in something. It's like one of our deepest fears. It's we're not enough.
Did you feel that way when you started the gym?
Yeah, in a sense where I'm trying to, like, for example, when the gym first started, I just knew deep down that this gym is not as good as a franchise, another gym. I mean, you can easily see that it's just not as good.
Yeah.
But I didn't let that stop me.
But did you feel like you weren't good enough? Like, so it's
I felt like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. So, but that didn't inhibit you.
No.
Is the idea.
So that's,
you didn't
I think,
utilize that as an excuse. You utilize that as a fuel to say, like, right now this feels confusing.
I think it's more so just an acknowledgement of, okay, I'm not obvious I'm not good enough, because if I was good enough, I'd be where I want to be. So it's obvious I'm not good enough. But isn't that why you do this? It's more so that, so I look at it as, well, that's why I do this, because it's not good enough.
There's enough times, I'm sure, where thinking I'm not good enough or not having enough self-confidence or self-belief in yourself has just stopped you from doing anything. Whether it was going up to, you know, to start a conversation with a stranger, pursue a relationship, start a business, maybe go for a new job.
And they get discouraged.
Go and talk to a boss and ask for a pay rise or ask what they can do to head that way. Yeah, it's just like a lack of self-confidence, a lack of encouragement in their own self.
I genuinely think that
grow.
I think that exists in every person in one way or another. But I just think that some people...
Why does it stop some people and not stop others then?
Right. So I think that still goes down to, well, I think there is a nature side of it. That, I don't know how much percentage, you call it half. There is a nature side of it for sure. I think hunger is something that is very hard to teach. You know, some people are very ambitious. Yeah. Some people are not quite as ambitious, but I definitely think nurture has the other half, at least half. If you're exposed to people that, there's a saying, if you've been hungry, you will never really be full. You know, you've been starved, you kind of just, you want more. Your environment might have a lot to do with it. So I would say that to these people that's listening, for the people that get it, yeah, you know, you're great. You're great for not letting that stop you, and you don't make excuses. Awesome. Like we all know that's the right thing to do. Just keep going. But for the other people that aren't in that place just yet, understand that look, everyone has those thoughts. That the thought itself is not unique to them, and it's simply whether you let that stop you or you let it be a contributing to the fuel. Yeah.
So I suppose, like, in terms of steps or practicalities to kind of push that through, because I get the dichotomy of, all right, so everyone experiences that way or feels that way at some point in time, but it's about not letting it beat you down and stop you. But I suppose that is the question, is how, over a long time frame maybe, how do people further instill self-confidence?
Practically?
So that I suppose practically. Like for my example is to kind of, as you said, you kind of put it in a different way, but I think you were saying that you're a product of your environment.
Yes.
If you're around people who are succumbing to excuses or succumbing to failures, then you're probably going to act that way. So maybe glance your environment and try and decide if what you're viewing is going to be fueling the negative self-beliefs or the positive self-beliefs that you have. For example, like an easy one's like TikTok. If you look at TikTok, you could probably, like, the algorithm just feeds you what you are to some degree. So if you swipe and you're looking through motivational content, you're probably just going to get more of motivational content. But if you're in more of a depressive zone of TikTok, then maybe it's going to keep fueling that depressive, sad kind of content. And so maybe if you're on TikTok or whatever, social media, just identify, are you just viewing these things like frequently? Yeah. Because that's going to be fueling your thoughts. It's going to be fueling your actions. And that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree. And you talk about this a lot. It's like hacking your algorithm. You send out positive things so people can watch them, and hopefully it implements a positive change in their algorithm. They start seeing better things. Maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your family, maybe it's that you're not reading enough books or you're not listening to enough positive things, encouraging yourself, putting yourself out there, giving yourself evidence. Those are some things that I would probably try and do is first identify where are the weeds, pluck the weeds, and then go about planting some flowers. You are a garden at the end of the day. Like if you want to think about how the brain operates, there can be weeds, there can be flowers, and you got to figure out how to make more of the latter happen.
Yeah, 100%. I'll just quickly say it's not their fault. Like the people that are born in a wrong environment and not making excuses for you, but yeah, it's not your fault. It is your accountability though.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So it's fine. You're building because that's definitely different. You're born into a family of environment, of even country. We have different values. If you were born into North Korea, it's going to be different if you're say born into America.
Yeah.
So that's definitely not your fault. But even in that, there has been stories of North Korean people going to America and living in very successful lives. So it's not going to stop you. But yeah, you're right. The practical thing I'll do first is to remove that environment. So it's literally you being used to living at 20 degrees. So it's a very simple example of all your friends around you have $100 in savings. If you have 1,000, you're no longer working, you're spending, right? Because you're rich now. But if all your surroundings have $1,000, you might have to save 10 to feel rich, and that'll go on. So it's the same with everything. Like, what's a good standard? If we just always listen to shit podcasts, we might think that's good enough. But you listen to like the best ones, and you go, okay, we need to do better at this.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to identify that, obviously, for them. You have to work hard at this. And they might think that if you're living in a household at home and it's quite negative, or you think it's quite negative, you don't know for sure, but I would say just take the risk and move out. And if that takes all of your income to do it, do it. Don't bother saving money, this and that. That move itself would be worth a lot more value than whatever money you can save.
Yep. So find ways to increase your temperature gauge.
Yeah,
the temperature tolerance.
The thinking is very different. The thinking is very, very different. Like I had the conversation with Kat about this. I had a conversation. Yeah, my wife, Kat.
Yeah.
And then she grew up in a quite negative and very poor mentality mindset. Now I grew up with my struggles as a kid and stuff, sure, but I'm blessed with a good mum. My mum is very self-made, successful in communist China, and she's made a single business with single mum. She raised me over the phone, and she's one of those tough, strong women. And in contrast, Kat's mum wasn't really like that. She didn't really work, and I think she was taking a lot of government money all the time, and it wasn't something that she aspired to be. So, and then we had this. So that's just more for context for the back of the story. And we were driving the other day, and we saw like the petrol was on sale. American listeners, gas that how the prices vary.
Yeah.
So in Australia, we have like, I don't know, Tuesday, some days
it's crazy. Yeah,
like fuel is cheaper, sometimes it's more expensive.
It's variance by like 40 cents.
Right.
Days,
yeah, so it actually varies. So a lot of people, so growing up, my dad is the poorer mindset one, and he always went filled up on cheaper days. Right. And then so I had this debate with Kat. I said, she's like, oh, look, fuel's cheaper today. I remember as a kid, I'd always not be afforded to fill up on expensive days, look for cheap days to fill up. And I thought about this. I was like, I never thought about this. And she's like, well, that's because you're privileged. You grew up in a privileged life. You never had to look at this stuff. And then I agreed for a second, but then I thought, no, I disagree with this. First of all, I didn't grow up in a privileged. No, I moved around houses. I didn't have money for school uniform.
Yep.
So why was I never thought of it this way. So my question to her is, okay, well, do you agree that we all have a limited amount of focus, energy, and memory space? And she said, yes. And I said that, so you agreed that if you spend too much of your brain and space and focus on the things, smaller things, that you will say no to other things. She also agreed. She said that, so I said that my mom has never taught me to focus on these things because you can save how much? You can save at most maybe $10 of fuel. That's if you fill up every week, that's $500 a week. So at most, this very focus would save you $500 a week. You cannot save your way to freedom. And you have this space taking your space ahead for the rest of your life. And you teach your kids to be able to save $10 a week to make $500 extra by the end of the year. But I'd much rather focus my brain on things on how I can make people's lives better. For example, prior to this conversation, I was talking to Kat about the new changes in employment laws. And I would let that fill my head in my space. And I was blabbering on about employment laws and she wasn't even listening. And I just said, let's just take that for example. That piece of information that I fill my headspace is worth so much more than how much fuel is today. Because you have to remember how much fuel is the day before that and the day before that.
Yeah.
So I don't have space in the mind for that. If I did for that, means that I'm only worth $500 extra. But that kind of mindset doesn't just come standard with people that are living in 20 degrees, for example. You have to be around the people that talk about this. You'll realize, people here don't talk about this. So you'll find that people that like to achieve things that are reasonably successful, they never talk about, I can't do something. It's always about, okay, what can we do to get there? You know, what opportunities can we do to get ourselves there? If something that you want is never, I can't afford it, is how long will it take me to afford that? So I think the first thing is to remove yourself from an environment where that is holding you back. I did this when I was 17. I moved out of home. My dad was holding me back. I was fortunate enough to see the difference on the two separated parents. So I moved out. Even no company is better than bad company.
Yeah, I think you're likely a product of your family and your upbringing. And I think as children we either just sponge everything that's going on, or we kind of go like, this is like not the way to do it. Maybe at some point you kind of realize it. I think maybe when you were 16, 17 and decided to move out of home, you realize this isn't the way to do it. Yeah, I had similar idea to Kat, who when she was growing up, like my family, like my mum would always penny pinch and whatever and try and like save the couple dollars here and there. I'm thinking like, this is just like a waste of mental space. It's like when you do the math, you save like $20 at the end of the year. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's more so life isn't good like that.
I know.
It's not. That's not the ideal life.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I get it. Like sometimes you have to do that short term though.
Yeah.
You have to do multiple jobs to get by. And if you only have $50 in your bank account and feel you're 60, you're going to have to just...
You got to think about it.
I think it's definitely a short term, but understand that is a short term thing. Do not lower the standard of the quality of your life. That's something that you have to do now. It's very different. It doesn't have to be that way. I believe that everybody can have an abundance life and still do good work and be rewarded. Wow, I don't think we'll have to suffer to save the world.
Yeah.
But that, I think, mindset and that possibility, that hope, I think is... I wouldn't say taught somewhere, but you have to see it somewhere. If you're around a place where there is no hope, you know, as a 12-year-old or 15-year-old, you're not supposed to nobody teaches you how to think.
But there is an element of like a scarcity mindset in that form of thinking as well. Like if you're constantly thinking, I've got to save, you know, a couple bucks here and there, then even if you have like a bunch in the bank and you're thinking like, I've got to save a couple bucks, you still feel like you're lacking, like you don't have enough. Like, and that kind of like plays into your whole life. You're probably not as generous to other people, to people, like to even with your time or whatever. No, it's probably just not a good way to go about it, but it definitely is a learned behavior.
But that's one example of, I don't want to use the word rich thinking and poor thinking.
Yeah.
Not monetary terms anyways, rich as in like resources provide, like what optimistic thinking and pessimistic thinking.
Yeah, right.
Optimists are always going to be more successful. Pessimist people are always going to sound smart. So I just think that is just you need to surround your people that, but true wisdom is optimistic.
Yeah.
Because pessimistic people come from a place of naivety, right? So we all were born naive. Everybody's born naive. You think the world, like a stranger, that's why you have to tell kids, don't go with strangers.
Yeah.
People are naive, but everyone's going to get bitten somewhere along the way. And then that most people's naivety turn into pessimistic. So that's technically a step above naivety, right?
Yeah, right.
Hence why a lot of stuff you see on socials is quite pessimistic. But there's got to be a progression from that. I think most people stay there. And plus pessimism helps you, comfort you because it's not your fault. You can make excuses.
Yep.
But people with wisdom would understand that that's what optimism means, isn't it? It's understanding times are tough, but it's still okay to commit to a better outcome. So first thing I think I would do is to remove yourself from not even find a positive environment. I would say just remove yourself from a negative environment.
Pick the weeds out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always thought dads were mean and parents were bad. I grew up with, my family background, I didn't have school uniform. I wore a little t-shirt. In winter, I didn't even get bought jumpers and stuff. And and rain, hail, whatever. I walked to school and never got to lift anything. I didn't really have a dad growing up. So I just thought all dads were bad. Right. Then I sort of go to my friend's house and play games with them. And then I realized their dad will make me food and give me drinks. Then I feel like this is not what aren't you scared of your dad? No way.
Yeah. I get
so
you.
then I realized, there is a better. So when you realize that, acknowledge that, well, somebody's already shown this to you. Acknowledge that. Don't put your head in the sand and commit to a better outcome. And if that means cutting ties to whatever is holding you back, it feels not significant at the time, but it is a very significant move. Like for me at the time, didn't feel like, I wasn't even sure. I just think it would be better if I moved out from my dad. It might just feel like that, but that very action is probably as good as you just made $1 million just like that.
Yeah. So immediately remove negative things and then try and supplement them with positive things at some point. But just removing the negative would make so much of a difference. Yeah. It's like I always thought there's this book, it's called As a Man Thinketh. I think it's by James Allen or something.
Yeah, you keep saying that, yeah.
But effectively the idea is that like you're literally a garden. And weeds, in a garden, like weeds just grow. They just grow. You have to constantly be like attuned to them and pick them and pluck them. Yeah. And only without the weeds, then you can plant some nice flowers and stuff. But the weeds have to go first.
I guess what we're trying to say here is even know what the flower, if you've grown up in a place full of weeds, you got to know what the flowers look like. You got to step out of your own garden for to see what it looks like.
You got to be able to identify what even is a flower, what even is a weed.
Yeah, and the thing is, I said don't even focus on the good, just get out of the bad. Because if you really think your life is that bad, okay, if you think you're born in a garden of weeds, there's just 0 flowers, chances are you can just walk out of this garden of weeds. Any random thing you come across is going to be better than yours.
True, yeah.
So that alone is already a positive. And if you go out and you see worse, well, you better be grateful because your garden wasn't that bad in the first place.
Very true, yeah.
So I just think that if you think that your environment is bad, get out.
Yeah, and the amount of times, because I thought like as a kid, like I had a very tumultuous kind of upbringing as well, a little bit to some degree with my parents. But then I realized like you go out into the real world and then you go like, you know what? It's not that bad. Yeah. Like you start realizing there's heaps of these people going through like similar experiences or way worse experiences. Yes. And I'm thinking like, fuck, all right, like I'm going to grow up like right now. Like it's time to like just grow up.
I remember having this exact thought. Like I went to one of my friends' house playing the second Diablo. Went to that guy's house. And he was also brought up by a single dad. Because I grew up at the time, a single mom, single dad. Technically, I grew up most of my life with a single dad, and I thought that was a reason for him being not so good. But then I went to this guy's house, and I just thought single dad must be bad, but everything was good, and I couldn't help but to think, why can't my dad be like this? So what excuses does he have not to do this? Sure, I don't know the full story, but I have seen a better outcome, and there's nothing wrong with committing to that better outcome. At least I know it's possible now. So when you see these things, you open your eyes to them, and it solidified even more when I moved out of home to my first girlfriend's family and they took me in. They were also nice. And they were all immigrants and they worked hard for their money. They're struggling in some way or another. So then you realize, okay, you're allowed to commit to these things. It's possible. Then things start to happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. All right, so that is overcoming negative self-beliefs. After that, I feel like a big excuse is probably the biggest excuse, at least I've ever heard from people, I'd say, and it is that I do not have time scarcity mindset. I think this happens all too frequently. I feel like it's no one never doesn't have time. They just don't make it a priority. I feel like we all have 24 hours in our day. Like if you really, really don't have time, it's probably just a cop-out because like even I remember Obama, you know Obama, so he was in the the White House, and he always worked out in the morning, and he was getting interviewed or something. They said like, how do you like still find the time to work out? And he's like, I do not have time not to work out. Yeah, I have to work out.
There's another better saying on that. I think it was Martin Luther King. Was it Martin Luther King? Don't quote me on who it is. He was a religious person, but he says he used to have a famous saying that I have a very busy day ahead. I must spend an extra hour on my knees. Because he prays.
Ah, that's nice.
Okay, so a similar term where it's like if something is important enough, you will find the time.
Exactly right, yeah. Yeah, so Is it just the easiest one to go to? Is that why people use it more often?
I think a lot of the time people might just say as easy excuse to give. They might not think that much about it.
Yeah.
But if you actually believe you don't have enough time, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is somebody else has more time than you. Okay, obviously you're not going to say that because anybody with a brain is going to know that everyone's got 24 hours in a day, which means that if you say that you don't have any time, what you're saying is that you got a bad batch of life given to you that you have more to commit to than another person is what you're saying. Then we're going back onto the whole excuse mindset once again. Right? So if you truly ask yourself, I think people do understand. I think a lot of them don't want to admit to, the gym thing, for example. I mean, how often no time to go to the gym? I'm surprised we have that as a literally option as on our cancellation forms,
right.
so no time.
And does that get clicked a lot?
Yeah, it gets clicked a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Most one is actually just moving out of the area or this and that. But yeah, I think that's probably the second.
Enough people are like, I actually just don't have time.
I think it's definitely reduced now, but it's definitely one of those things 10 years ago that was, I don't have time for this. What you're really saying is that I don't want to prioritize.
I'm not making it a priority.
That. Yeah.
So I suppose it's always hard, and I don't think this is ever going to be eradicated, but it is just a quick like language shift from being like, I don't have time to, I'm just not going to do it.
I think we need to make it clear.
It's not what I want to do.
I think we need to make it clear that we're not saying it's easy, right?
No, of course
it's not easy to say like, because you have to make time for this, so therefore you have to sacrifice something else when you say no to something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes
like this isn't my priority right now.
Yes, so that sometimes isn't easy to make that decision.
Yeah,
that's not what we're saying. I'm not saying it's easy, right? But it's definitely a choice. It is 100% a choice.
But I was taught if we look at the idea between just fitness and working out, I always said like, you are probably watching like a Netflix show, like maybe every other night or every night. Like that takes 45 minutes. You could literally work out while it's playing. You could buy a treadmill or buy a little stationary bike.
You're so practical. You're thinking about so that's...
You just do that. Like I'm thinking like if you don't have time for the gym, you're doing something sometime. Just do some sort of activity. It doesn't have to be at a gym. It could be at home.
But doesn't that like, it's people that... I don't have time for the gym. Oh man, like I don't know anybody that is reasonably successful at anything that would say that. You cannot say that and expect yourself to be successful at anything. I don't literally know one person that have achieved anything that I don't have time for the unless they're really young and they haven't learned about life yet. No adult in their 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s is gonna say I don't have time for the gym and expect a successful life. You at least say look, I let myself go. And that's a fair way to say things.
I think nowadays with the rise in social media and media attention and whatnot, I think it is so common for anyone who's relatively successful to also be involved in the gym or involved in sport or fitness or whatever. Whereas I think maybe back in the day, you know, the typical business guy in suits, like when they hit 35, they let themselves go a little bit. They stop walking or going around and their focuses are just really skewed. But I think nowadays, like, everyone puts a big focus on.
Listen, I'll say like fitness. When I was younger in my 20s, like I was much more into bodybuilding and the way I look. Not that I don't care about it anymore. I definitely don't look anywhere near as good as I did when I was in my 20s. But I chose not to. It's because there are other priorities in life.
But you didn't just kick it down the road.
Yeah, so I'm saying I'm also not a victim of. I'm also like I'm choosing because I value it slightly less now. There are other more like running.
You never
the business.
said I just don't have time for it.
Absolutely
you said it's
not.
just not as much of a priority anymore. It's
you just choose.
Take a back seat.
So in other words, like this, I don't know who said this, but someone else said this. Some famous person said, for 25 years I chose to be fat. I say I chose to be fat because I never accidentally eaten anything. Right? So you can true. So I think that's a better way to put it. I don't think people shame people that are overweight or don't go to the gym. It's just take accountability for that. When it becomes a choice, you can say I choose to drive a red car over a white one. That's fine. Red might not be my favorite color, but that's fine. You have your favorites and mine. I think you can't expect to say I have no time for something and just expect actual real friends who respect you and care about you to just let you off easy on that. If my friend told me they have no time for something, I'm going to call it bullshit 9 times out of 10. So if people actually, because in general public, I try to as well without offending them.
Yeah, it's always
These
hard.
days people get offended, but so you clearly don't understand the concept. Look, if you're just doing this on purpose to make yourself feel better, okay, that's fine. If you actually believe that, man. No, man.
Yeah, it's just the wrong way to put it, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you were the age you are now, so mid-30s, is that right?
35.
35, bang on, mid-30. But you had the exact same ideas and brain as you were when you were 22 when you started the gym, but you're 35 now. How do you think you'd go getting into business?
I think to answer that question, I actually think I'll do better.
You reckon?
Yeah. Because obviously I've lost 12 years of learning for sure. And if I'm starting now, but I'm sure there's going to be accumulated knowledge elsewhere, right? But the thing is that if I started at 30, well, depending on, this is a hard question to answer because a lot of my qualities were built in the 12 years of building the business. Now I'm imagining what I would be like if I didn't have. I probably can't imagine it. But
yeah, it's really hard. It's like
it's very hard to answer that.
It's a difficult mental challenge.
But 35
I'm saying, do you really think like because 22, for example, you were on the other end of the spectrum. I think starting a business at 22
very young,
is quite young.
Yeah, 35 is normal.
You did it. Do you think? Yeah, do you reckon it's a normal thing?
Most people start businesses in their 30s and 40s, don't they? Or traditionally.
30, yeah, maybe I'd say now. But nowadays it seems like everyone's starting a business when they're 20, 25. Really? You know what I mean? Like the idea of a young business owner is now like more common, and a lot of people start having families at 30
especially
and 40 or
field,
whatever.
Guess,
and so it seems like when you have kids and when you have all this, taking that risk, because it is a risk.
Okay, well, I think if you're looking at it from that
difficult
perspective, it's definitely more disadvantage to a young person doing business because you simply have less life experience.
Of course, yeah.
So it's more advantageous for a person with more life experience to do it. The only downside is when you get older, you have other responsibilities, you have less energy, you probably can't work as hard. I mean, but you technically have more tools in your toolbox. You just probably want it less because you're a little less hungry, you're a little less optimistic, you're a little less passionate about you. You've been conformed, you know, society has made you conform into whatever rules. You're a bit more tame. So you're probably a little less bold in that sense. But you technically have more tools in your tool bag.
Yeah.
So I think your 30s is a very good mix of that, where you just understand enough of life lessons and enough professional relationships to have some network, have some money, resources, but also not old enough to I'm just going to cruise into the sunset sort of thing. I think 30s and 40s are the best in that. Jack Ma had that saying where in your 20s you should be learning. It's actually not him. A lot of people had this saying, in your 20s you learn, or was in your 30s you learn, but in your 20s you learn, maybe in your 30s you earn. But you definitely learn first. But reality, you probably don't earn until your 40s and 50s. That's probably when you make most of your money. But that's because of the lessons that's accumulated over the 2 decades before that. So Jack Ma famously said in 20s you should work for someone. So don't worry about starting a business. You work for someone that you follow the right boss. That's what they say. And no, he actually said that in your 30s you follow the right boss, I believe.
Okay, and then 40 you earn.
40s 30s follow the right boss. 20s you're just learning. Finish school, whatever, do whatever it is you need to learn how to do the job. In the 30s, follow the right boss, how to do the right things properly. 40s is start something.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But when he says start something, I think it also meant in a sense where you should know what you're good at now. By 40, you should really know what you're good at doing. Stop. It's time to stop experimenting with too many things.
Okay,
just go doubling, whether it be a business, whether it be your skill, double in on that skill. And then in your 50s, you should be leading and investing back in the young people. If you're a business person, you should be investing. You should be a chairman now. You should be investing in other people to make the big decisions.
Yeah.
And then in your 60s, you can lie on the beach.
There's a good pathway for people, I think.
I think 20s is way too young to expect people to build a successful business.
Yeah, I suppose there's the contrary to.
There are the ones
If you
I've done.
start a business, you're going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Like you could even say, for example, you technically didn't really start earning.
I didn't make money until my 30s. Yeah.
So realistically, your 20s were a learning experience.
Yeah, we're just learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I started earlier, 35, the part of me feels like that. I reckon would have done it. What have I done in 12 years? I'll do it in 2 maybe. But you can't say that because I'm not sure what lessons I'd have.
It's impossible to know. But I suppose there is there's probably a cutoff, but at least for me. So if I look at the idea of starting a YouTube channel, like can you be too old or too young? Because I'm sure someone who's like 40, they're like, I really wanted to like start a YouTube channel or whatever, about XYZ or about, I don't know, baseball cards, something like that. And then they go, but I'm just too old. Or like, I want to, I really want to get into the business.
What would Gary Vee say about
You'd be like 40
You're just
years
getting
like,
started.
I'm fucking young, man. I'm 40. I feel like I'm 24.
You're 80. You got 50 more years to go.
Yeah, literally, bro.
No, but without making fun of him, but yeah. It's exaggeration of the character. But what I'm saying is, yeah, man, we're 40s, dude. It's
but people get caught up in this. Like, I don't know. There's so much evidence of, the Colonel,
what Colonel? The Colonel,
the KFC Colonel.
Oh, Colonel
He
Sanders.
didn't start KFC until he was like 60.
I think there are so many of these
There's
examples.
the
What about McDonald's?
Oh, is it no, it's not Oracle. It's the guy who started a tequila company. I don't know.
But
he
hey,
started it when he was 60 and homeless or something. It's like $1 billion company now.
What's McDonald's guy? Crook?
Ray Kroc.
Ray Kroc, yeah.
Yeah.
So Ray Kroc, is that his name?
It's Ray something.
Yeah. But he didn't start until his 50s. So there's so many, man, there are literally much more business owners that started early than they did. Because what the do you know in your 20s?
Yeah.
You seriously know so little. Most people haven't even washed their own laundry in their 20s.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you definitely can't be too young. I don't think anyone would argue that you can be too young nowadays because people see that people are starting businesses at 15, whatever.
You can start whenever, but to expect it, to expect success at that age.
No, but I think people might think that it would work out more when you're younger than you're older. But when you think about it, the businesses that are really like massive, they're all old. There's no one, like I'm talking like the tech giants, the healthcare giants,
Look,
consulting agencies, like the law firms, they're all humongous and they're all run by people who are 50, 60.
Well, like the president of a country. Have you ever seen a 20-year-old president of a country? What's the reason for that?
Yeah, that's true.
So if a kid expects this, my question to him, right, is let's just say he's a 22-year-old kid that I want to be a billionaire by 25. I'm sure people have done it. People have also grown 6 toes and people have like won lotteries, okay? Yeah. You might be one of those if you're lucky. Like I said, luck does exist. So you can aspire to, but know your chances that is likely not going to happen because completely lost my train of thoughts here. But as I've gone on the 6 toe thing, my brain just went to the 6 toes. But my point is like is the same thing as if you're 24 and some 16-year-old asks you, say you're 24 that you're reasonably good at basketball, and some 12-year-old goes up to you and say, how do I be as good as you by 15? And you've already committed your whole life into doing that. I mean, I'm not saying this 15-year-old can't do it, can't be as good as you because there are people that are just that good. But what are the likelihood of that? For this kid to be expecting to be as good as a really good 24-year-old at 15, you would think that it's probably unlikely it's going to happen. It's also unreasonable because what you're saying is you're disrespecting my work ethic for the 10 years that I had on you and also way overestimating your own. That's in a way entitlement to me. Why do you deserve that level of success? And I think that they think of it as once you get to this milestone, life is just going to be easy. I can just have all the money and just spend everything and I'll just be done. You know, they also saw that as a destination, but what they don't realize is a constant journey. You can't explain to this some 20-something-year-old because I was one of those. I remember that when I was 25, when I started the business at 23, 22, I wanted to be a millionaire by 25. And then when I got to 25, I wanted to be a billionaire. I didn't become a millionaire at 25, and now I want to be a billionaire at 30. But it's not that now I'm 35, I'm not a billionaire.
That's a humongous jump.
But right. But it's not that I don't believe that that is possible. That's the wrong question to ask. I can't even explain it. It's such an immature question to ask. To say about how much money should I be making at this age? First of all, people don't even understand the difference between $1 billion and $100 million, for example, right? If you're talking about this, it's not that much a difference. And then you don't even realize that if your quality of life don't change that much from $100 million to $1 billion, right?
And a huge amount of money.
So you first have to understand what it is that what you're saying is you want the society to trust you with $1 billion is what you're saying. Do you understand the responsibilities it takes to take that to take that? It's the same way as people wouldn't give that responsibility to a 20-year-old to run a country because you simply have less life experience. You cannot experience in 20 years what someone else has in 50. Now, you might be smart and work harder. That might speed it up a little bit, but to expect to have everything by 20s is not only that it's impossible, it's it's entitlement, and you should be asking, what can I contribute in my 20s? It should be, how many people can I help? That is a much more better question to ask than to demand that I'll just make it, whatever making it means in your 20s.
Yeah.
So I was one of those young ones that was asking that question. So now I look back to it and I just realize how immature that question is. So now I would ask, instead of saying I want to be a billionaire at 40, I would say that by 40, how many people would I want to have help, and how many revenue do I want to create for my business, and how many employees I want to have? Because they're much better markers to set.
Aspirations, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what differences have you made? Like the podcast, not how much money do we want to make from a podcast, but how many episodes do we want to do by a certain time?
Yeah.
So in your 20s, you're not really,
do we want to help?
Yes, you're not looking at it that way from when you're in your 20s. And that's the very reason why you can't do it in your 20s. But the people that have done it in their 20s, that have made reasonable success in their 20s, usually didn't look at it as a figure. You know, they made a difference based on whatever mission that they had.
It's a good way to put it. Okay, so I don't think anyone would really think, I'm sure people do, but at least unanimously, we don't think that you can be too young or too old. I think there's opportunities both ways. You're either old enough and you've got more experience and also less time, so more reason to do it. Or you're either young and you've got so much time that not doing it seems so impractical because you can just learn regardless of if you fail or not.
I'm definitely not against that, because I'm started in my 20s. But what I'm saying is it'd be very good to aspire to be successful in your 20s. That's what I did. But you cannot expect.
No, of course not. No. But it's more the excuse of even starting something that I'm too young.
No, then start it. If it's curious about it, you got to, because if you go in there with the mentality of I'm going to fall a million times and I'm not going to give up, this is what I love to do. Well, I reckon be aspire to that. So when we started the podcast, I just know for a fact there's going to be stages. There's going to be a naive stage where we go, yeah, this is pretty cool. And there's going to be a stage where we go, okay, this is a bit hard. Yeah. And then it's going to slowly come to, it's getting better. So expect that sort of a journey. And if you know what you're doing, start in your 20s. I'll put it to you this way. I think you should start, you will know. You will never know for sure when you're ready to start something, right? It's just like asking, how do I know this is the right person to marry? How are you supposed to know that?
Yeah, 100%.
But when you have the gut feel that you just you can't go to sleep without thinking about it, it's either that you do it or you live to your 50s and still thinking about it. That's all it is.
Yeah. I'd say the last one is that I don't have enough money/resources. So
That's
the
fair,
limiting belief would be a lack of resources.
That's fair. That's me.
That's reasonable.
Hey, that was me in my 20s.
Is it a reasonable excuse to utilize?
It is. But why don't I just give a perfect example of myself?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I wanted to start a gym in my 20s. I didn't want to be a personal trainer. I didn't want to be. No, I particularly wanted to open a gym because I was a product of the gym that saved my life, and then I felt like it's the only place where I could get the right recognition for the right reasons. I was getting recognition, and it's evidence that you work hard, you get results, all of that stuff. And a lost teenager with some struggles that finds the gym and rap music and combined together. I mean, what the hell? I mean, that's like the recipe for so many teenage kids. So that was me. And then I wanted to open a gym, but the problem was money, right? So then every other gym that was on sale, and this is the gyms that the businesses on sale, usually not. It's probably a reason why they're selling. And they're all selling for $500,000, $1 million. I had like $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, why don't I just open my own gym then? I didn't even understand what it costed to invest in gym equipment. No idea. So I just looked at like warehouses and stuff. And what I realized was people didn't even want to lease properties to a 22-year-old because you could just not know what you're doing, bankrupt, and then they have to then find new tenants. So I couldn't even get that done. So I had restraints of age, no credibility, and also no money. But I just kept looking. And one popped up, which is the Burwood Gym popped up. It was on sale for $30,000, $40,000. It wasn't worth $30,000, $40,000 because it was a business making a loss. It owed money.
Yeah.
So they were lucky that they found me because no one was going to buy that shit. Like they would just, the guy owed 40 grand like superannuation. So that's why he wanted to sell it for that, so that that money he would use to pay off his debts.
Yeah.
So I bought a problem, but they saw me like I was Santa Claus, but I saw them as I was Santa Claus because I wasn't able to sign a lease anywhere else. I was too young.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is like I did, and I found that place that let me in. Then I took over, and then I used old equipment, salvage from all other gyms that they salvaged, that they gotten rid of, that I salvaged to then go up and compete against them again. It's like the whole Michael Schumacher story. You use old tires and compete against the people that got rid of them. So, I mean, it's a bit harder. It's a lot harder. But it was a way.
I'd agree. But I don't think, especially nowadays, I don't think it's really as much of a valid excuse as it used to be.
And I gave an excuse of a traditional business where it requires a lot of capital as well. So
exactly.
Nowadays,
Upfront capital. But the idea of like a lean startup, even if you look at business terms, or just lean startup in your own kind of media pursuits or whatever, like it's never been easier. Like for example, I started with a $700 camera, and that is like unheard of. Like $700 camera to 200 million. Sorry, not 200 million, 2 million followers.
Yeah.
It's like anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, to create two examples, $700 camera to 2 million subscribers.
Yeah.
But it did take like bloody 10 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. Well, it's your time commit. That's the thing. So the resource that everyone has is always time and what they do with their 24. So money should be no kind of limiting factor, especially nowadays. Like the idea that you could realistically start an internet company with the use of AI, researching, creating websites, all on your own, just with your time, and build some sort of business out of it.
Yeah, I think they have to really fall in love with the topic though.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people,
100%.
If you're just starting a business for the sake of starting a business to make money, I'm not saying it can't work, but generally speaking, it doesn't work. Because there's going to be somebody else.
That might be the resource that's the most important, is your interest.
Yeah. Because there's going to be somebody else that are more interested than you, that they're just going to not only outwork you, but they're willing to work for free. They're winning when they're working for free.
Well, that's it. That's the resource. So they're solving the resource game by enjoying it.
Yes.
They don't need the pay. They don't need it. They're just going to enjoy it.
So given the fact that you enjoy the topic and are passionate about making a difference in whatever field it is, I don't think a resource is, in a way, is probably positive, because you can make less expensive mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and you learn to be resourceful as well.
Yes.
Like utilize less money to achieve a certain thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's you lose less, that you have a little less to lose as well. I just think there's so many positives that people don't look at. Yeah,
I'm sure like there's probably so many companies that do heaps of funding, like startup rounds, and just waste so much money because they have the ability to.
Yeah, heaps of that. And there's also more glory when you start. I think it's more glory when you start small, because I built something. Yeah. Look how fulfilling that is. I don't think it'll be as cool if we started with like $1 million. But to be able to start with like a year of my savings on 30,000, and then now training that is being evaluated to, I don't know what, like $6 million, whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
That it's isn't that journey so much more fulfilling?
And people love that journey. People love looking back and being like, wow, this is where it started with, like, this wasn't just almost like an industry plant, the term industry plant.
Yeah.
Like bang, like this gym, American gym with heaps of funding just opened up. It's perfect. It's pristine.
Yeah.
It's got good systems.
It's got a story.
It's got a story behind it, which is what you want.
Yeah.
You want your first video to be shit.
Yeah.
You want that.
Yeah.
Because then you can look back in 5 years and be like, damn, that's nice.
The good part.
Yeah. You don't want to have all the gadgets and bells and whistles and stuff. Not yet.
And I think that's what builds confidence as well, right? That's how you know that I built everything, breaks, I can fix it. So I think there's definitely a lot of people are saying that they don't have enough money to do something, and look, it's definitely a solid excuse. But if they're letting that stop them, they probably shouldn't do business anyways. They're clearly not resourceful enough to be able to
figure a way to acquire said money. Like set a plan. Like if you're 20 and you're like, shit, like, this business is going to cost me 15,000. All right, sweet. Next couple of years, save 15,000.
You'll find a way.
Figure it out. Yeah. I know a guy. He bloody. I saw a guy like ages ago, and he just kept working and starting businesses, and he'd like fail a couple, and then just go back to work and save another 50.
Save again, and do it again.
Just do it again, and eventually made one that was successful.
Yeah, respect. Yeah. Didn't let it stop him.
No, just kept going. It was like, all right, this way I need more fun coupons to get back in the business, so I'll go work for a little while. Yeah.
I do think, you definitely have to have this irrational belief that it is going to, or at least you're willing to do everything to make it work. That part is irrational.
Yeah.
You can't really calculate that, can you?
No.
You can't do a math on $700 camera to 2 million. How is that math going to work out? It's not a calculation. No. It's just a belief. That's it.
Which comes back to the enjoyment. You got to actually enjoy it. Otherwise it won't work out.
Yeah.
What's your view to put a pin on it? So if someone is like lacking resources and they go, I want to go into business, what's your idea behind getting loans and I don't know, maybe some sort of capital?
Okay, that really depends on, I think this depends on the industry. Like I can say, part of me, I want to say, don't bother with that in the beginning because you're just going to make so many mistakes, right? Bootstrap it, just use your own money, start something small, go on a niche market, test something and actually do it. So if you want to do a PT studio, for example, don't just open a PT studio, train the clients, you do the work, understand what it feels to do these little things. And in that process, you find out how competent you are, whether you still love the process after 2 years. And you probably, you do a good enough job that you know how to hire and how to manage people in the future. And you'll probably accumulate enough resources by the end of all the learning lessons. But if you just jump through that and get somebody else's money, you better have a very good track record of experience before that. So given that you don't, and you're a young kid, if you're a young kid in your 20s, you probably don't have a lot of those. Or I can start small and just tumble a few times, fall over and start again every time. So I think that learning process, it's better than just getting somebody else's money. Usually that's with people that's got a little bit of industry credibility, got a little bit of knowledge.
A little bit of idea of where that money's going to go and if it's going to come back as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're starting something up and you're not good at predicting, then geez, that's going to be pretty dangerous if you...
Well, you end up just losing someone else's money and then be discouraged.
What if it's the banks though?
And probably have really bad credit history.
So it's probably not worth the risk.
Bankruptcy in your 20s. Yeah. Banks probably won't even loan you that money in your 20s anyways, especially if it's got to be a solid business plan.
Yeah.
But no, I would say, look, the even more practical thing, right, is unless it's like a media field, social media, where you can just start sort of on yourself, I would really advise young people, right, in your 20s, if you're really interested in business, there has to be a topic that you're interested in. Let's just say I'm going to say you want to open a mechanic. Let's just say that. I would work for a mechanic and I would find the right boss in that industry. And if it's not the right boss, I work for him for maybe 6 months, a year and learned, at least put a 6 month to it, ideally a year. If you learned enough from this person, you genuinely don't think this is the right boss, find another boss in that industry and then follow the right boss. Until you find the right boss, I would say try to get into business with this boss so that you might not have to start completely from fresh. That's a very piece of practical advice. Yeah,
so you're like I think Gary Vee called it like an intrapreneur, like you're an entrepreneur within the business.
Yes.
So you don't need to be like, I need to be like running the show. You could just be like a really, really good number two or a number three.
It's more so that if you want to go fast, go on your own.
Of course,
distance, if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And hence why, the world's biggest companies aren't owned by one person, because you are essentially helping your boss. You might have the vision to bring young, you're passionate. You can take whatever this successful business is somewhere else that they've never been before. And you don't have to start fresh. And you've got some maturity mentorship along with you.
Yeah.
Because this is a training there's expansion model. I want to be able to make all of our staff future business owners. And honestly, if there was a person that I had access to when I was 22, 23 that could show me this, I would very well take that path. I think I would have gotten to this a bit quicker. Yeah. And also feel a lot more supported and less anxious. So as a practical one, okay, if it's something small.
One of those things you got to learn along the way though, hey?
Yeah.
I reckon.
Yeah. So start on your own. If it's something small, you can trial and error. Just don't give up, keep going. Or if it's something that is an industry that requires a little bit of capital, maybe follow the right boss and try to get into business with this boss.
It's different pathways to go about it. That is limiting beliefs, guys. Screw your excuses. And even though you might think they're valid, they're only valid if you think they're valid. So you make up the excuses and you can believe them if you want to. But if you want to make some progress, maybe try and figure out how to get over them. Anyway, catch you in the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.